Welcome to episode 144 of the Sports Geek podcast. This week I chat with Damion Chatmon from the Cleveland Cavaliers on emerging technology.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, known for the Callanan shimmy. Go on, YouTube it, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I had to put the Callanan shimmy intro in there because I'm recording this on the Saturday. Collingwood Football Club's going out for its 125th anniversary game versus Carlton. I hope by the time that you are listening to this, Collingwood has won the game. But I will be there at the MCG celebrating 125 years of the Collingwood Football Club. If you know the Collingwood Football Club, I hope I have not lost you as a listener straight away. But yes, if you want, please go and Google Callanan shimmy to see my 10 seconds of infamy in the Collingwood 125-year history. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to the Sports Geek podcast. You're doing so either on Pocket Casts or iTunes or Stitcher, or you might even be listening to it at sportsgeekhq.com. Thank you very much for listening. You can contact me at Sean Callanan on all platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn, Sean Callanan Speaks on Facebook, and of course on SportsBiz Slack that is hurtling towards 1,000 members. Please sign up soon if you have not signed up yet. Some really great people, including my next guest, Damion Chatmon. Lucky enough to catch up with him at South by Southwest. Had a brief discussion around what the Cavs are doing, and so we caught up during a Cavs playoff game to chat about what he's doing in his role previously on the data side of the business at the Cavs, and now in a new role of Director of Emerging and Digital Technology Solutions. So he's looking at all the fancy tech and the new tech and how it can impact the Cavaliers across all the sectors of the business. So here is my chat with Damion Chatmon from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Very happy to welcome Damion Chatmon, the Director of Emerging and Digital Technology Solutions. It is a bit of a mouthful, from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, Damion. Wow.
Thank you, Sean. I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor.
It is. It is a long title. Do you have trouble fitting that on the business card?
Yeah, there should actually be an acronym for it. It's more just I have a fantastic opportunity to kind of look at all types of technologies that might influence or affect our business organizationally. So it's been a fantastic learn, and coming from the world of business intelligence and data and operations and CRM, it's a bit of a shift because you're spread out a little bit more wide across the organization and how you can look for solutions that impact different areas of our business.
So you've been in that role since about a year now, or are you
about a year now? Yeah,
about a year,
yes.
and it is pretty much just sports teams now need someone that is looking on the horizon and saying, "What's next? What technologies we should be looking at? How should we evaluate these technology vendors that are pitching us?" So that's your role, both in the digital space, but then, like you said, across the businesses, how different solutions and emerging tech can help different parts of the business?
You are absolutely correct. For so long, sports has kind of been operating. They operate a little bit behind, I think, the real world from a business sense, in that the product is very emotional.
Yep.
And it's very cyclical. So the sports industry has been able to rely on the fact that they've got an emotional product that people will come back for over and over again, good or bad. And technology has impacted that greatly within the last 5 to 10 years in being able to reach more fans and engage fans through technology in order for a bevy of purposes, marketing, campaigning, just basic engagement, for the source of collecting information and data, and being able to go back out to those folks with relevant and timely communication that will keep them engaged for a life cycle.
And do you think, so in your first 12 months in the role, so your background previously, ticket sales, started in the Sabres, and then in the team at the Lightning, and then in the business intelligence team, the Cavs. Do you think that data background and the crunching of the numbers and understanding the data have you started in that area and fanned out, or have you gone, I'm looking at things that I haven't looked at in the last 10 to 12 years? Where have you sort of spent your last 12 months in looking at the different tech that's out there?
Wow. Let me just say, from a data perspective, that's its own beast.
Yep.
When you talk about data and analytics and profiling and information, that almost lives within itself. But then it also affects an entire ecosystem of other systems and services that we're able to offer. So what we like to think is that we're data driven in that respect, where we utilize information to be able to make smarter decisions on how we impact our fans, our business, and the bottom line. How technology plays into that is automating those processes and giving us additional information and levers and triggers and digital ways to engage these folks. So we're able to interact with them, and we're able to learn from them, and we're able to serve them better to meet their needs as a fan.
So we were talking earlier about your job title. Your job title, like on LinkedIn, must just scream.
Sure.
It just must scream, tech vendor, pitch me now. So how do you go through the process of filtering all of those emails and calls? Call me today. Is there? Do you have your own process? Is there? Do you vet them at the email level? Do you have a lot of coffees? Right. Again, you're like the belle of the ball, and all these vendors are going, I want to talk to Damion. I want to talk to. We've got to pitch
all of the above. All of the above.
So how do you go about it? Do you have a process around that?
Well, it doesn't involve a dartboard, I'll tell you. And through the process, I've kissed a few toads. But basically, Sean, it's my willingness to learn about what's out there and how what's out there can positively impact our organization, our business, or help someone find a better way. In most cases, and you are right, with the title of emerging technologies, everybody's got something to sell, and everybody considers a champion sports team or a sports team with high-profile athletes the easiest target, because there's an assumption that we've got money hand over fist to spend. So it's almost like these prospective vendors find out the naming convention of an email, and they blast everyone in the organization a lot of times. So you'll have folks across the organization talking to different vendors at different levels, some giving positive responses, some giving negative responses, some people passing the plate to someone else to investigate. Well, we saw that need for someone to be proactive, to be looking ahead, to be at least collecting a bank of information on these folks for whatever purpose they might serve. So that became me. And what I've done is I've developed a system where we're evaluating and vetting the technologies on 4 facets. And the 4 facets that I utilize are fan engagement first. And then we look at, does the product or service solve an existing problem? Then does the product or service enhance customer service, and does it generate revenue? And I have to say again, fan engagement is first. Being one of the companies under Dan Gilbert's family, we follow his what he calls isms. He's got a book of business on things that have helped him throughout the course of his lifetime in the industry, in the business industry, and one of them is money and numbers follow; they don't lead. So we're not always looking to generate revenue first. From a fan engagement perspective, if we do the right things by the fans, they'll continue to come. So we're consistently listening to their needs. We're consistently finding solutions and technologies that are viable to them and interesting to them that keep them engaged with us.
It actually sort of raises a good point. A lot of the tech sort of coming under some of the wide relationships outside of basketball that Dan Gilbert and the group have. Tim McBride asked in the Sports Biz Slack channel, the influence of current and future team sponsors might have on what you go and do from a technology point of view. How do you balance that kind of relationship with those four pillars when you've got a partner that says, hey, we've got this great tech? Do you still have to run it through those same four pillars to say, well, this is why it's right, this is why it fits for us as the Cavs brand and the Cavs sort of fan experience?
Absolutely. I mean, we operate, we're a high motor organization, and we like to think that we take a proactive approach to technology and a very, very genuine approach to our brand. And when you talk about all for one and one for all, and all in, we are very high on integrity. We're very high on fan engagement, and pleasing those folks, because at this day and age, we're not competing necessarily always for the revenue or a dollar. We're competing for time.
Yep.
The one thing that people are losing is there's no more time. So how can we get folks into our building and appeal to them for 3 hours? Or how can we attract them to our website or to information that we push out socially or via mobile, to engage with us, to continue to experience our product? This is a long play. This is a marathon. So we look for the long-term engagement, and we don't necessarily want to be living in peaks and valleys, because, you take a look at us right now, and, we're doing fairly well on the basketball side. So it's easy in some respects to generate revenue or attract fans. However, in dark times, as I like to call them, in the past, it's a lot tougher. So you never want to be living high, you never want to be living low, but you do want to be consistently kind of in the middle in terms of how you operate.
That does that you sort of answered a question that I did have, of the joke that winning is the best marketing strategy. And as someone who's been at the Cavs for a long time, LeBron's first stint, and then his hiatus from Cleveland and coming back, that is for you to sort of take you back to the time of when you're in the business intelligence side of things and the data and the ticketing. How did you try to get that consistency in your department when the on-court product was very varied, going from a playoff team to a non-playoff team back to a playoff team? How do you try to keep that consistency in the offer, but obviously you're pulling a few different levers to sort of make sure you're getting those wins off the court?
I tell you this much, being in Buffalo compared to being in Tampa and then being in Cleveland, I think Cleveland and Buffalo are almost synonymous in terms of the love that the fans have for their teams. And, these folks, as you saw in our championship parade last year, the people that came out, we've got a good relationship with the community. And I think that's a result of doing the right things over the years. So in good times or bad times, we were able to still maintain and sustain our fan base and be able to communicate with them, be able to provide them with a good set of offerings, on the court and off the court, where we're able to appeal to their needs based on what we knew about them, and still be able to be positive on the revenue side, be positive on the retention side. It was more of a struggle, of course. You dig in a lot deeper and you work a little harder and you put more resources towards it. But it certainly was possible, and we were able to maintain even through the tough years.
So it is that consistency of saying, this is where our bar is. It's always going to be at the very least this high. We're going to focus on serving the fans, the engagement. Yes. So then when success comes, it just becomes an amplification, and all of, everything just moves up a few more levels. But you make sure you have that consistent line of, this is how we're going to serve the fans, no matter what's happening, on the court.
Absolutely. And again, since 1970, from the team's existence, there have been those highs and lows, but it's the product that we offer on the court and off the court that keeps the folks coming back. And again, these folks are blue collar, big hearted, wonderful people that we deal with in our community.
So from your role now, your new role, and again, you're looking at all this new tech. What's the point where you go, we're going to jump into this new tech? Like, is there that discussion of when's too early, or is there sort of like the Google methodology of 20% of your time working on cool stuff, and that cool stuff might become something. Is there a sort of percentage of your time and your budget where you say, well, I want to try new things, because if you don't try new things, you don't fail, you don't learn. Is that sort of what you're trying to integrate into your role?
Yeah, that's not so much how it works. If I could just rewind a little bit and go back to kind of the methodology.
Yep.
We talked about all those folks that approach everyone in the organization and just kind of spray and pray and call and ball is what I like to call it. Folks now know what my role is, so they funnel those requests and those inquiries towards me. And as I mentioned, I like to learn.
Yep.
The best that comes out of it is learning about these new technologies. Once I vet these folks out with contact information, a good use case, an overview of their company, including all contact information, what they do, where they're headquartered, how many employees they have, how long they've been in business, I take a look at the organizational impact. And how it affects us, a good use case of how it would work in whatever department. Then I look at whether or not they're in our family of companies, because as you mentioned, Dan does have a lot of other companies. It's always a plus if there's someone that's within our family of companies that we can work with because of the synergies within our organization. And then I take a look at the cost. And I take a look, what's most important is the resource cost from a human standpoint. This new technology, we bring it to the table. What does it mean for someone's day? Is this 2 people 8 hours a day? Is this 1 person an hour a day? What is the human resource cost? Because I think sometimes that's a little bit more important than the actual money cost, because we have another ism, if I'm allowed to bring it up.
Yep.
Innovation is rewarded, execution is worship. It's good to be able to talk about an idea or bring up an idea, but who's going to do the work? Right? Who's going to execute? So that's extremely important, because you can bring these technologies up and introduce them to new folks, and they're like, I just don't have the time. I'm not able to do this, and that's sometimes one of the objections. So I take that into mind, and I do this kind of technical write-up. And I utilize any supporting documentation that a prospective vendor has, and I send it out to interested stakeholders or who I think might be interested. If a tech has to do with marketing, I would send it out to the marketing team. If it has to do with social, I'll send it out to the social folks. And then I sit back and listen, Sean. Mm-hmm. I sit back and listen for, hey, this is a pretty good technology. We'd like to learn more. We'd like to see a demo. Hey, could you ask these questions? Can we set up a meeting? Sometimes it's we don't have budget, or sometimes it's we already do this, but we do it this way. Sometimes it's, hey, let's wait. Let's put it in the budget cycle for next year. So I then facilitate whatever the response is. And if it is a meeting, I set that meeting up. If there's a pilot, or if we do engage with those folks, I'm the guy that on the front end looks at the terms, the T's and C's. I look at the statement of work. I look at any legal. I get the NDAs out of the way. So I facilitate a lot of that. I'll get it to the point where we sign a PO. We look to pay the bill, all the way to the point where we implement. And if there's an implementation, when we put the product into play or the service into play, even to the level of training folks or operationally digging in and setting up on our side to get things functioning and running, and then maintaining a little bit. So it goes a lot from an initial email, initial phone call, a concept, to an understanding of what the product or offering is, a push out, a pulse on the feel for the appetite for that product or service. And then if we do move forward, all the way through to implementation, training, execution. And a lot of times it's it's great. We've got your information on file. Should we need to go in your direction, we'll certainly call you. So the least that comes out of this, the beautiful thing that comes out of this, Sean, is right now we've got a bank of over 150 folks that I've reviewed. So in the case that someone from marketing says, hey, we need a company that does this, or hey, do you know anyone who does digital silk screening?
Yep.
Now we've got a bank, and here's the information, here's a contact, and here's how much it costs, and here's the documentation for it. So again, from a learning perspective, from a resource perspective, to be able to have that at your fingertips, whether it be for practical applications or whether it be to augment or enhance a partner activation. We've got that book of business in mind, and even from a comparative analysis sake. So you see 2 or 3 or 4 people that do augmented reality development, right?
Yep.
Now you've got 4 that you can contrast and compare.
Yep.
Hey, we got 3 that are on the West Coast as opposed to 2 that are on the East Coast, and the price is this, and they've got these functions and capabilities. So it helps us to even be better in our selection process when there are multiple folks at the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think both the learning aspect of knowing what's in market, but then knowing, like you said there, that if there's multiple partners that have got similar products, you can sort of do the appropriate comparison of their feature set and things like that. But the one takeaway I sort of took of your assessment is, and I think this is one that a lot of technology vendors sort of fall blind on, is that HR cost. Is the person
right.
who has to actually use the tool, and put the data in or upload something or use it. And,
right.
They're pitching it as a revenue thing or a fan engagement thing. And like, that's fine. But if you're resource really thin and stretched, which a lot of sports teams are, doesn't matter if they're at the NBA or at smaller leagues, everyone's stretched for resources. And so, it could be breaking point to say, you hear from tech, all you need is someone to spend a half a day a week to do this. And you go, well, we don't have someone for half a day a week. Like, right. we just can't manufacture another half
right.
day. So it's something that does get skipped over from a vendor point of view. And, what they probably need to do is to say, they need to express, well, here's the savings. Here's the savings not only in a cost point of view, but here's the savings in the HR. Whether
yes.
it's a complete done-for-you service or it's not going to cost you any more people. Now, then you have to validate whether they're telling the truth or not, because it's
right.
very good to say marketing-wise it won't cost you anything, but you also know someone has to do something. Like you said, the
right.
Execution is key.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that piece there, for any technology vendors out there listening, understand that impact because it's massive, because the we'll just add someone to the staff doesn't happen with a click of the fingers.
That's very true. And oftentimes I've found that sometimes you have to play the role of a salesman to actually paint that value proposition to the potential end user. Because a lot of folks, they've been operating in a space, Sean, that, they've been doing the same thing for forever. And to change the way they do things, with technology, sometimes that scares folks. And so they're a little bit apprehensive to kind of embrace newer tech to save those efficiencies or show those efficiencies. I haven't seen it frequently, but there are some cases where folks are like, nope, we don't operate like that, and we're happy with the way we're doing it.
Yeah, and then you've got the counter argument of the team, doesn't matter what team and what part of the business they're in, they see some tool as the silver bullet, as
right.
It's going to solve all our problems. And so
right.
you're the man in the middle, because you've got a tech vendor that says, of course it will, and you've got someone saying, this is the best thing since sliced bread, and you've got to play that devil's advocate role of who's going to do this, who's going to do this, how's this going to happen? So it's sort of sometimes you've got to push pump the brakes both on the vendor and particularly the department to sort of protect your team from themselves and its enthusiasm.
Oh, yes and no. I think, from my perspective, from a vision perspective, if I see the positives and the efficiencies in a certain product or tool or service, I'll certainly advocate for it.
Yep.
And on a lot of times, there are folks on the other end that are pretty eager to sit down and hop into a room and ask additional questions after they've reviewed. We've got a gentleman now on our digital sales team that stays in the folder that I've created, and he's reviewing all of the documents and all of the products and services, and he's looking at them from a sponsor activation perspective, to be able to offer our sponsors new and cool ways to get their product out there. So it's an easy sell to him. However, if you take a look at things that have functioned the same for a long way, like community relations or sometimes finance, where they've got their system set up and this is how they run their business, to try to introduce something new is a little tougher. But again, the big cool factor that comes out of it for me is even being able to grasp some of the ideas and concepts of this new technology and look to employ them with the tools that we have already in house. That's another thing. It's almost like you're able to take some of the ideas and the thoughts and even ask, hey, are we doing this? Do we do this? How do we do it? So there's a lot of learning on the internal side for me as well. And a lot of times leads me to understand how we process and what our business processes are and how we actually do things. So when I do meet new vendors in that same space, I've got a better understanding. So it's almost like human machine learning.
Yep. Oh no, I completely understand, because as you get better knowledge of the internal processes of your team, but then also how the market and the offerings that are being pushed out there fit your team. Yeah, you can evaluate a tool and really just see a really cool process in it that can be adopted in your team.
Right.
That doesn't require the tool itself. It's just, hey guys, have you thought about your business in this manner? Yes. And so that's the one of the big things of, hey, keep an eye on emerging tech, because they're trying to solve a problem here, and then you go, well, we didn't even realize we had that problem internally. So it at least starts that discussion of, like you said, does it solve a problem? That's one of your key things. It can at least highlight, well, is this a problem? Is it a big problem? How is it affecting, our fans? One of the questions I wanted to ask, again, given your long backgrounds in sports, in both the data side now and the emerging tech side, is there any advice you've got for people coming into the game now, coming into trying to break their way into sports business, that you say, this is what you need to do, or this is what held me in good stead early on? Is there any advice that you would give young up-and-coming sports biz execs?
Sure. Absolutely. We like to focus on 5 characteristics within our organization, and there's an acronym that we use. I use. It's called PLOW-P. It's passion for your craft, leadership, openness to learning, work ethic, and positive attitude. If you're going to dig in and you're going to approach the sports industry, you certainly better be passionate about it. Passion is something it's developed over the course of time, and it only tends to grow for something that you really want to do. So when you do get into a position or you're approaching a position, you definitely want to be passionate about it. You want that to be very visible to anyone who might be considering you for a position. Leadership. You lead horizontally, you lead vertically, you lead from the front, from the back. You lead from below up top. So you're always, I had a mentor of mine once tell me that you're always being interviewed, right? And younger folks, older folks are always looking at you as someone that they would potentially hire or work with. So leadership is very important. Openness to learning. Once you stop learning, and this is in my opinion, you die.
Yep.
There's so much out there, and there's so much out there that you can do, and you can learn from anyone. You can learn from any subject. So you always want to be open to learn and how you're getting better and how you're growing. And work ethic is something I believe can't be taught. I mean, you have or you don't. Like I mentioned, we are a very high motor, and we stay until the job is done. I like to joke a lot sometimes that, we spend more time with our work family than we do our real families, during the course of a season.
That's not a joke. That's
That's
reality.
not a joke. That's real.
Yeah.
So, literally you're there 10, 12 hours a day with folks, and, you sometimes miss your wife and kids. So work-life balance is important, but, it's working smarter and not harder, and being efficient with how you approach your day. And then, positive attitude. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have a loss stretch, and there may be a lockout, and you just have those bad days. But how you carry yourself influences others, and from a collaborative standpoint and collectively, how you carry yourself influences how the day goes for a lot of people. So it's always good to maintain a high positive attitude about things. I used to joke back in the day, I was like, folks who get really, wrinkled up about something or a process or something that happens, say, hey, you work for a basketball team. I mean, this isn't, you're not on the front lines in a war zone, or you're not performing brain surgery. This is supposed to be fun. So, you learn and grow, and you get better.
No, definitely. It definitely comes down to, like I said before, if you're a young person in sports, execution. If you can execute, you will have a long career. Like, hard work, and you can execute. And that the example you just gave there, to say, hey, you work for a basketball team. When I talk to people going, oh, it's so hard, and and they start that negative Nelly type of thing. I said it could be worse. You could be trying to market a bank or a telco, or you could be working in the PR department for United Airlines. Like you always got to look at the grass is not always greener. So look at be thankful for what you've got. Definitely.
You're right, and it goes back to the passion. Why did you choose this profession? And at one point, you fell in love with it. It's almost like it's a commitment. It's like marriage. You're going to put your all into anything that you do. And why wouldn't you put it into your career? And if you're passionate about it, you're going to look to put your best foot forward and work hard at being successful.
So touching on that and touching on your passion, your work ethic, and some of the rewards that you get working in sports, give us a bit of insight into your experience last year. The Cavs win the finals. How was it? What was it like being as part of the team behind the team? And some of the feelings, of both that win and the weeks after and all of that.
It was really surreal, and it's kind of, it seems like it happened eons ago, again, because of how quick, time goes and all the things that are going around us. But, I've been in the industry 21 years now, and that's the only thing I have not seen. I was close in Buffalo with the Sabres going on to an Eastern Conference Finals and losing. I left that year. The next year, they had went on to the finals and went to a Game 7 against the Stars. That was the no-goal game. So really close there. I think the second year after I'd left the Lightning, they won the Cup. And then the stretch for 15 years with the Cavs, it's like year after year. And when I came in, the team wasn't really performing at a high level. And then we got LeBron, and, we saw the ascent, the finals in 2007, and then he left. And then there was a bit of a decline from a performance standpoint. And then he came back. And there was just so much hope. And, I had a watch party, and I wasn't down with a lot of the team members at the Q during Game 7, but I projected a high def image of the game onto my neighbor's house, and I had about 50, 60 folks in my backyard, and we just watched every play. It just seemed like it took an eternity. And when that final buzzer went off, and the ball was thrown up in the air, it was just like I just kept saying to myself, "It's about time. It is about time." And it was not just for me, but for our city. There had been a 52-year drought, and it was like, it's about finally. I just kept saying finally. It's like you can breathe again. And it was really, really rewarding. And it just really emphasized the hard work that you put into it, the passion and the long hours. And the fruit just was so sweet. Just to see our city come together like that for the parade and even afterwards, folks hugging in the streets, just elated. It's something I've never seen in my lifetime. And, coming from a very passionate sports town in Niagara Falls and Buffalo with the Bills and the Sabres, with the 4 straight Super Bowls and not winning it, just to see the folks finally be able to exhale and enjoy that moment, with the very special piece being LeBron, right? Being that he was from the city, being that he came back and promised it. It was like, check cashed. It was like you could, stamp the letter now. It was like it was just a great time.
It was like a whole city's, slumped shoulders just lifted, because it was like that's off our back now. And
I had been to other sports cities that you go to Pittsburgh, and there's a swagger about the people. Their heads are high, and, they got their chest is out. And it's like, I had noticed for a while, I was like, we don't have that. It's like, Cleveland. And, we can talk about the tech sector coming back, and we can talk about the entertainment and life, nightlife and natural resources and the lake, but now to have a champion and a validated champion and being able to compete at a high level, even to potentially, challenge a repeat. It's like we're back here again, and there's anticipation that, wow, could you imagine not just one championship, but a back-to-back? This place would explode. And then you look at the Indian success, right? It's like, wow, there's really a lot here. So you actually see it in the eyes of the folks and how they carry themselves. That we've got that load off our backs a little bit, and we're head high and singing.
Well, thank you very much. Before we finish up, I want to do the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event that you ever attended?
I want to say it outside of my little league football games, it would have been a NBA preseason game in Buffalo. I believe the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. I want to say they played the New York Knicks, and he had nosebleed seats, and Michael Jordan was a half-inch tall, and he played for the first quarter. But it was like, okay, that's NBA basketball. And Buffalo at one point had been an NBA city with the Buffalo Braves, but they folded back in the 70s. So. It stuck them kind of with hockey and football. So, yeah, I believe it was at the Memorial Auditorium, checking out Michael Jordan for the first time.
Oh, well, you can't. It's a pretty good first game experience to see MJ in action. Do you have a favorite food at a sports event, whether it's a go-to food or you've just had some sort of premium? Because now that the gourmet sports food is sort of becoming a trend, is there something that that mouth-watering that you always look forward to at a sports event?
I've got to say, when I worked in Tampa, our arena football team, and they're still in business, the Tampa Bay Storm, I'd go to some of those games just on a Friday or Saturday night with nothing to do before we had kids. And their Quaker Steak and Lube in the building had a dish called Tips and Shrooms. And it was like a sauteed beef tip with onions and mushrooms, and they just gave you a gigantic mound of these things in like a paper boat, and you sat behind the goal lines of a football game and just clobbered them. So I kind of asked our Quaker Steak and Lube folks up here, I said, what did you guys ever do with the tips and shrooms? You got to bring those back. So yeah, I tend to enjoy those. I don't know if they still carry them down there, but they're great.
It does sound very tasty. It does sound very tasty. Is there a first thing in the morning, what's the first app you open on your phone?
You know what? I like to just check my Outlook. Hey, what kind of communication did I get throughout the night? What's my day look like? I like to see what's on the calendar, what type of meetings I have scheduled. It determines the course of my morning. Hey, am I hopping in the shower really quick, or ironing a shirt really fast, or do I have time to make it in? Take the girls to the bus stop, things like that. So it's normally Outlook, and then followed probably by Instagram, Facebook. LinkedIn now has really grown a lot on me. I think I recently turned on my notifications, so I see the notifications as frequently as I'd see a Facebook or an Instagram.
Yep.
And they're regarding business and sports business. Most of the folks that are connecting me are in the vast fraternity sorority of sports folks. So there's always someone that I know that's doing something or making moves or shaking. So I like to congratulate them and see what they're up to.
Yeah, I do think since Microsoft's taken over LinkedIn, they're very much doing what everyone's doing. They're copying Facebook and the news feed. But I do think I think the algorithm and the content that is being shared on that is getting is getting better, and it is bubbling up the some good stories. So you can go to your feed now and see stuff that is relevant. It's less salesy and spammy that it was. So I'm
Right.
finding more people say, yeah, that's where they go and get a bit of their business knowledge from
Yes.
LinkedIn. Is there someone that you would like to nominate to the Sports Geek podcast listeners that they should follow, whether it be a Twitter follow or someone in LinkedIn or someone an Instagram or an author or something like that? Is there someone that you are an avid reader of and you say, yep, I like getting information from that person?
Boy. No, surprisingly enough, not really. I've got a lot of friends in the industry that tweet or post. A good friend of mine, she spent a bunch of years at the league, Kirsten Corio.
Yep.
She's now with the U.S. Tennis Association, I believe.
Yes, she is.
She puts out good content. She's a very smart young lady. There's a gentleman down. He's with Legends, Todd Fleming.
Okay.
He's legit. He's been spending a lot of. He manages their global brand. So he's spent a lot of time in Italy with the soccer teams and the F1 racing. So his perspective is really cool. A lot. Dr. Sutton, Bill Sutton is out there. I like to follow him. Malcolm Gladwell, Mike Conley. He puts out some good information. He's with us. He recently turned me on to, I want to say it's called IAB or IFB.
Yep.
It is it's a internet and branding and marketing kind of daily that I like to follow. So there's a bunch. There's not any one that sticks out in particular. I have a whole bunch that I just kind of glean a little bit from.
It is very much the way that you've got to sort of find your own sources, and then they come to you, whether it be via Twitter or from LinkedIn, or you make sure that you're always checking in. But yeah, having a few people like I was lucky enough to speak at a conference with Kirsten many years ago, and briefly saw her at South by Southwest in a short visit. Hopefully, we'll get her on the podcast soon. But yeah, it's just a matter of keeping up to date and keeping track of people who are doing cool things, because that's you're very much in that space of if I'm going to be in this emerging tech space, I've got to connect and talk to the right people, and then find out who are the good curators in that space. Whether it's, I want to know what mixed reality AR is doing, then I'm going to keep following what Robert Scoble's talking about, because he's diving, deep diving into that space. I can keep an eye on what he's doing to have enough knowledge so when I need to deep dive, I can deep dive. And I think that's a really good strategy of having multiple people to say, these are people that work well at league level. These are people who work well in certain tech. These are people who are good at ticketing, those kind of things. It's really important.
Right. They become resources. They become folks that you can bounce ideas off of. And frankly, when you do go to these tech conferences and you do go to the seats and these conventions around sports, some of the best information gathering comes from peer-to-peer networking. When we go behind the closed doors and we say, what are you guys doing? Are you guys having the same issue? How are you solving it? What kind of resources are you throwing at it? How much budget are you spending towards? So that's really helpful. And I used to always like to say that, not only do our teams compete on the court or the field, but our teams are competing in the offices and business. Yep. And the NBA is really good at their league meetings and how they promote the teams that are doing well in terms of revenues and ticket sales and sponsorships and things like that. So there's a competition in the offices as well. So when we see each other, we like to share, but we also are always looking to stay competitive.
Yeah, I mean, one of the phrases I use a lot is steal with pride. If another team is doing something really well, just steal it, twist it, make it yours, put your own twist on it. Because as a Cavs organization, you're not going to convert a Blazers fan. Like the Blazers fan is locked in. So how can you put a Cavs angle on something that the Blazers have done or something that the Celtics have done? Because it's the fans don't know, and so it is that matter of that's a really good activation. How can we do it in our manner with our partners, our way? Twist it a little bit. It's really valuable. Last question: sure. What is your social media MVP? If you have to pick one.
I'm a family guy, so I'm big on Facebook, and it was probably the first one I really got into. I'm starting to fade a little bit, but it's important for me to put pictures of my children up and places we go and the kind of things we've done. I live about, and you'll see this if you follow me. I live about 30 miles out of away from the job, so I like to play music and sing in the morning, and I like to record myself doing it. So a lot of my friends get kicks off watching me sing songs as I'm driving into work.
So that's where James Corden got the idea from. Is that what we're saying?
That might have been.
Steal with pride in action. James Corden
exactly.
got it from you.
It's a best practice. I should have copyrighted that.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you on the internet if they wanted to get in touch?
Most everything is at dchatmon3, DCHATMON3, the number 3, dchatmon@cavs.com, dchatmon3 on LinkedIn. So
yes, you are dchatmon3 on Twitter. You are also dchatmon3 on the SportsBiz Slack. So if there's any of the questions we did not answer, and there was a few, please hit up Damion there. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Best of luck for the rest of the playoffs. The Cavs currently in a battle.
We're battling right now.
Right now, we are recording, and we're going to do a live check-in on the game. We've done very well. You've probably
87-79 right now.
At the end of the just into the fourth quarter.
10 minutes left.
So we'll both check in for the last of the game there with versus the Raptors. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I look forward to catching up in real life soon. And
it's my pleasure.
And speak to you then.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Damion Chatmon, dchatmon3 on Twitter and on SportsBiz Slack. So go on to SportsBiz Slack, send him a message. We might do a little bit of live Q&A, put a spot there to answer any questions of Damion, especially the ones that we didn't get answered. Thank you very much to the people who did submit questions on the SportsBiz Slack. If I quickly run through the names, Stephen Rose, Tim McBride, Emanuela, Stephen Collenberg, John McCauley, Chris Hansen, Jason Cole. I know I only got to half of those questions, but thank you very much for submitting them. I will do my best to get more of the questions in, but I sort of like to go where the conversation leads me. That's it for this episode. Had some interest in the Sports Geek campaigns concept. It will be launching soon. If you are a commercial director or someone that's working on the digital side looking to do campaigns with sponsors and finding that a bit of a struggle, that's what we're setting up Sports Geek campaigns for. Simply send me an email, Sean at sportsgeekhq if you want .com if you want to know more. It'll be launching in the next couple of weeks as a partnership between myself, between Sports Geek and Tradable Bits. So be able to quickly and easily build out campaigns for you from either from a fan engagement point of view or for your sponsors and attract them leads. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.